everybody, and welcome to the Casual Sports Podcast. As always, I'm Alec Coburn, and Mike Wolfgang is going to be joining us here shortly on the Thursday edition, which means it's day one of our high school football extravaganza, as we've been calling it this season. Excited to talk about a big slate of games, week 10 of the regular season. So a long ride comes to an end for some teams here tomorrow night. Some others, they're just looking to punch their ticket to the postseason. Either way, we are in for some exciting matchups and ones that I think are definitely going to leave us wanting a lot more from a lot of these teams because, you have a couple teams that are going to finish 4-5 wins, might miss out on the postseason, might have some with 6. I think Lisbon right now in the conversation, even if they win, they would be 6-4. They might not make the postseason. So a couple teams fighting for their playoff lives going in here to week 10. With that being said, let's get this show on the road. Let's start talking. We're going to start North Baltimore and Windham. North Baltimore coming in at 2-7, and they've only put up 98 points on the entire season. You go through 9 weeks of football, only scoring 98. Not exactly where you want to be. I mean, that's almost 11 points a game. So definitely a spot where, if you're North Baltimore, you're going to look to come in here against a Windham team that's 3-5 and obviously hasn't had the best defense. They've had decent offense, but not the best defense. You're going to come in here looking for an opportunity to get that offense going one final time on the season. Now, North Baltimore, not really in the playoff conversation. They're 27, so I believe they are statistically eliminated at the moment and not a team anyone is going to be looking at here after this week. But obviously, final week of the season, everyone wants to finish on a win, especially Windham. At the moment, 16th. In Division 7, Region 25. They would have a date with JFK a week from now. But with a win, potential to move up. With a loss, Windham's season could end here this Friday. So it's a big ticket coming into this weekend for Windham. The game they really, really need to get done. And, it kind of goes off the game that they had 2 weeks ago against Fairport Harbor. It was a game they had to go into. They had a shot to win. They knew they had Matthews next week, a team they were not likely to go up against and come out with a victory, and that was the case. Windham came out in that game in must-win fashion, and they beat Fairport Harbor. Once again, Windham is in a must-win situation, and I think they're going to pull it out. I like Windham to take this win. Only thing that concerns me a little bit is their defense going to give up points again? Because we've seen their offense pretty much all year, 216 points over 8 games. They have put in a strong body of work offensively. That's 27 points per game for this offense. But then on the other side with their defense, 287 points. So, you go from 27 offensively, but you're giving up almost 36. So while they've played good offensively, and I mean, that offense, 27 points a game in this level is likely going to give you a winning record more often than not, unless you can't get it done on the defensive side. And a big problem for this season for Windham, the lack of home games. They played the first 6 weeks of the season on the road before they finally go in early October playing their first home game, in which they won. Now, the final 3 games for them on this season have all been home, and you've seen, offense in the first game went up 28. They put up 20 in the second. I expect to see this offense get right around their average again here against North Baltimore. I feel confident in saying I think their offense is going to do it. Now, are we going to get the offense that showed up against Fairport Harbor, or are we going to get the offense that led 60 points to Pymatuning Valley? Because you look at Pymatuning Valley, they didn't have an offense. You take away the 60 points in that game, in 8 games, PV has scored just about 110 points. Then you look over and you go, all right, North Baltimore kind of in that same scenario at the moment, So Windham, we've seen their defense give up big numbers to teams they shouldn't have because, they've had decent defense at times. They only allowed 12 points to St. John. They allowed 2 touchdowns to Fairport Harding. So it's not like they're at all bad. They've just gotten, the bulk of some of their opponent's best shots. So going into this final week, it's must-win football for Windham. I'm going to take the Bombers. I like the Bombers. I think it's one of the best names to have for a school. I mean, they're going up against some Tigers. I mean, that's just generic. I'm taking the Bombers to do it. And if you go it off the name alone, they should be the better team here. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But I like the Bombers. I've kind of liked them in the back half of the season. I didn't count them out despite, I'll say, a shoddy record. They were 2-4 going up against Fairport Harding. I didn't count them out. I'm glad I didn't. I think that there might still be some magic left in that old Bomber. We'll see if they can pull something out of it. I like them. We'll see what happens. I think either way, that should be a very fun and interesting game tomorrow. We do have rain scheduled really for today, but tomorrow you get into it, there's not going to be any. We're looking upper 50s, more 60s for game times. So, you're going to have better weather conditions, and it bodes well for an offense there in Windham that has been ticking pretty well this season. Game 2 to go down on. Edgewood started out the year spectacular. They were 4-1. Their only loss had come to Jefferson. And then they got to the meat and potatoes, as I've called it. Perry, Geneva, Chagrin Falls, and Kirtland. I was impressed that Edgewood came away with a win against Chagrin Falls, who I know isn't the best this year, but it's been traditionally a strong program. But I must say that this conference right now playing very good. The part that I look at coming into this game is recency. What have you done recently? And when you look at Edgewood, when you've lost 3 out of your last 4, I just saw a team that was very much in this same spot over in Girard. Girard football, kind of great start to the season, gotten a little roughed up in conference play. 3 of their last 4 games didn't go their way, and they struggled against others in some aspects. They played an overall good game, in which I think Edgewood will as well. They should be playing a good game here against Lakeside. But the one that stands out, they're coming off a 44-0 loss to Kirtland, who obviously is a spectacular team who's only allowed 57 points through 9 games on the season. Help whoever gets there, because it is going to be rough for anyone to go in there and try and touch Kirtland this season. I hope it's Valley, because I want to see that, and I know Andy Hake wants it. He deserves it. So does that team. But I think anytime you see Kirtland, it is a momentum killer. It's a game that everything that can go wrong for you will go wrong. And I think that is very much the case in that game. I mean, obviously, Edgewood getting shut out, and every aspect of that game was against them. They could not get anything going against Kirtland. And now you come in off a really bad loss like that against a good team on the road, mind you. They got to take on Kirtland at home, and that happened. So you lose all that momentum, all that energy playing at home. And now you travel on the road against the team in Lakeside that, they lost to Kirtland too while playing at home, but they went on the road the next week against an easy opponent in Pepper Pikes Orange and came away with a 47-0 shutout of their own. So now I think you have Lakeside coming in this week. They get the home game coming off a road victory. I would say momentum's on their side. They've won 3 of their last 4 in comparison to Edgewood's losing 3 of their last 4. So I think that's a big discrepancy. Edgewood, when you look at the common opponents especially, it was a 28-21 win for Chagrin over Chagrin Falls. Lakeside won 26-7. Obviously, I mean, they've both lost to Perry. They've both lost to Kirtland, and they've both lost to Geneva. The extra loss came against Jefferson. In Lakeside, hadn't played a hard team like that. They took on North out of Eastlake, who's a 1-8 team. They took on Brush. They took on Madison, that's 2-7. They didn't play the hard game that Edgewood did. And you look at it, and the record's about the same. And that one extra hard game has kind of taken that number out of Edgewood. So I look to Lakeside coming in this game, especially because they're coming off the win. You need momentum at this point in the season. If you don't have momentum, you're not going to win games. DeSalvatore has been really accurate at quarterback. 66% at this level is pretty much what you want. They put up 1,000 yards on the ground with 13 rushing touchdowns. They are not the most prolific offense in the competition up there in Ashtabula. But I think these Dragons, one another really great name to have for a school, the Dragons, going up against the Warriors. I'm taking the Dragons in this game. And no, I'm not just picking it based off of what their names are. I think that momentum factor is going to be key. Lakeside coming off a shutout win of their own versus Edgewood coming off a shutoff loss to Kirtland. It's hard to kind of bounce in there. But for more thoughts on this, we're going to bring in Mike Wolfgang. Welcome into the show here, Mike. Thursday edition of it. We were through one game already. We'll bounce back to that in a second. But I want to get your thoughts on Edgewood at 5-4. They've lost 3 of their last 4. Including their last game to Kirtland 44-0, and Lakeside, who's won 3 of their last 4, including last week on the road in Orange 47-0.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a good way. At this point we keep talking about closing out the regular season and get to the playoffs. It's a good way to kind of close things out, on their side. But with Edgewood, they want to try to find something else here because 5-4. But the last couple games have not been that great. Losing that last one to Kirkland, but that's a tough opponent. So I think it's a matchup of teams trying to, get something into going next year, number one, and just trying to continue on what they've been doing the last couple of weeks, or in this case, trying to turn things around on the other side of it. So I think it's from that part of it's a good one going into it.
Well, Mike, for Edgewood playoff positioning right now, they sit 15th. The win here could potentially still put them up there into that conversation. At the moment, though, if season ended today, they take on East Liverpool's Beaver. So obviously, you want that win. You would much rather be taken on a team like Woodridge, maybe Northwest out of Canal Fulton. You don't want Girard, Beaver, or West Branch as that opening round game. So here in Division 4, Edgewood, they're really looking for a game like this to give them some of that momentum. Now for Lakeside, they're Division 2 school. They're 15th right now in Division 2 Region 5. They'd have a matchup against one-loss Riverside. And basically, any of these top 3 teams, it's Hoban, Hudson, and Riverside. And then Fitch is the 4th team. That first round game is not winnable if you're one of those teams. This is a game for Lakeside, also sitting at 15. You lose, you're gone. You win, you might be able to move up slightly if some teams around you stutter in this final week of the regular season. So I think, one, it's very important. Losing, you do not guarantee yourself a spot in the postseason. Win, and you're in.
And what else do you want to come down the stretch to? After a year that you're in this spot, you get one more chance to try to get in. And like I said, move up too, because there's some opponents you probably do not want to play in the first round. So
this is big for Edgewood too. They get a win as a Division 4 school over D2. Mind you, so they're getting points for playing up 2 levels and pulling that win in. It could go a long way to where they sit in the postseason and ultimately how deep they can play. Because I think just about any region we're looking at right now, Mike, you are not beating the top 4 teams.
Oh yeah, it determines the road to success you're going to have in the playoffs, like you just said. It determines who you're going to play. Who you play in the first round really determines, or even in the next rounds after that, who determines how far you're going to go on paper at least. So yeah, that definitely matters for teams at this point, especially both these teams. But for any team that's in this situation coming down the stretch, you really want to try to find. Again, it's not your control, but you think you beat anybody in which you're in that position, but it determines your road to success.
Well, Mike, ultimately, I'm taking the Dragons of Lakeside. This point in the season, it really is recency, and it really is about momentum. And at the moment, Edgewood just does not have any flowing in their direction. And I like Lakeside. Outside of the Kirtland game, their last 3 wins of 4 games, they have only allowed a single touchdown against them and have put up well over 100 points in those 3 combined games against West Geauga, Chagrin Falls, and Orange. They have momentum. Their defense is playing well against teams they should play well against. I think it's close, but I got the Dragons.
I'm going Dragons as well for that part because I do pay attention to recency stuff. They have played well recently, and they've done well in that department. At this point of the year, you want to be playing who's hot at this time of year. That also determines what you're going to do in the playoffs too.
We just saw that in baseball. Hottest teams in that month of September.
Baseball's the number one example of that. That's the number one example.
They made the runs.
If you're hot, you're going to do some type of damage. And some football, especially in high school, when it's one game, winner take all, you want to be playing your best football. And I think right now, like you said, defensively, overall, they're just playing good, winning the 3 of the last 4. So recency stuff, I'm going towards Lakeside.
And maybe, you might not win the crown, but ultimately you could go in there and maybe not play upset yourself, but you could potentially upset that team you're playing down the stretch if you can play them very physical. I mean, look at the Guardians. They took it 5 games against the Yankees, and now you look at the Yankees, you're like, they might not have a shot because they're too exhausted going up against an underdog to beat the Astros.
Yeah.
So, I mean, while you might not be the team that beats Kirtland, you might be a part of the reason why Kirtland could go down the next week.
Yeah. Attack some teams, put a little bit of pressure on them to try to see, because like you said, they might not get some teams that are higher up with expectations, they might not get what they're expecting. Some teams, they're not just going to roll over. So that's some teams here that are trying to fight for stuff. Give these teams your best shot. Who's playing hot?
Fire away. All right, next one up. Mike, I'm going to jump back to the first one. I already made my pick on. I took Windham. It's Windham versus North Baltimore. In Windham, North Baltimore, 27 seed. They're out of the postseason. They are 2-7 on the year. Windham is 3-6, still holding on to a 16th spot. Need to win in the final week.
I'll go with Windham just for that fact. Just for the fact they still got a chance.
I like the thought. Game 3 to talk about here on the day 1 of the high school football extravaganza. Lisbon at 5-4, clutching their pearls right now as they are trying to make it to the postseason here in the final week as they go on the road to take on the Clippers of Columbiana at 2-7, who have won their last 2 games. Columbiana came into the final stretch of the season with an 0-7 record, having lost the 3 games prior to this winning streak to Southern United and Valley Christian in tremendous fashion, getting blown out by double digits in all of those. However, they turned it around at home against East Palestine, 46-14, and then on the road against Leetonia, 41-0. Obviously, one combined win between those 2 teams, but still, you look at Columbiana, little bit of momentum you can give them that way. However, Lisbon, they've won 3 of their last 4. They beat East Palestine and Leetonia as well down that stretch. They beat an impressive Wellsville team that I do still like despite their record, and they lost to United their last time out. So you do have Columbiana coming in with a little bit of momentum, obviously not against great opponents. But, Lisbon has had the benefit of going up against some of those teams as well in recent weeks, especially with East Palestine and Leetonia. They have been kind of buy yourself a win very easily type games for these teams so far this year. So I think you kind of have to push a little bit past records here. And if you've seen them, you might have the eye test a little bit better. I've seen Lisbon this season. I have not seen Columbiana, I don't believe. So I have not seen what they're made of, but I know they've gone a long way to get their coach's 200th win. They finally got it. They got him 201. Now they're in the fight for 202. The Clippers, I believe, have already been eliminated from the postseason. I don't believe they have an opportunity at the moment. So, it's one of those games. Can you play the upset? Can you hold Lisbon out of the postseason, who's currently a 12 spot? I'm going to have to go and double check this real quick, but I still believe if they lose in this final week, they are out of the postseason. I'm going to double check this here while you give your side of it, Mike.
Well, obviously on Columbiana's side, we've been talking about with some teams. Give us something at this point of the year because start a rough year, you start 0-7. Give us something, like you said, albeit not against great opponents, but when you're 0-7, you just need to win against anybody. And they got 2 of them in the last 2 games. So they got that, momentum factor going for them. I don't, whether that carries into this game, we don't know. Whether it carries in any game, we don't know. But, with Lisbon, like you said, they still got the chance to get in the playoffs. So they should be focused and ready to go for this one.
They should. All right, I got the numbers pulled up here. So Lisbon, they do control their own destiny. With a win, they are guaranteed a postseason spot, an 11 through 15 seed. But with a loss, they are not totally out. They can still find themselves 11 through 16. But if they lose and teams behind them all win, they will not make the postseason. So it is win and you're in. Just go from there. Don't make it an opportunity where you have to rely on others to control your destiny. Mike, as a Penn State fan, obviously you've had that kind of happen in recent years.
You got to remind me of it.
I have to throw it out there. But no, I mean, you understand that feeling as a fan, though, of we have to rely on other people. You always want to be able to rely on yourselves to get that done and push yourself to where you want to be.
Well, like you said, I talked, I think Tuesday about, scoreboard watching at that time of this year. I remember, having that with some teams. Like I used to do that with Pirates when they were going to the playoffs all year. Scoreboard watching. Sometimes when you're in that position, you just look at the scoreboards. It's like, oh, who's winning? Who's we're going to play? But when you're in that position trying to fight for or keep yourself alive, You just worry about what you have to do. Worry about taking care of your business. And in this case, Lisbon, worry about focus on Columbiana. And then, like you said, winning you're in. That's all you got to do.
Well, sometimes much harder said than done. I think Lisbon's going to get one hell of a shot from Columbiana this Friday, but ultimately I'm taking the Blue Devils to get it done on the road and punch their ticket to the postseason.
I'm taking them for that reason too. Like I just said, just winning you're in. Again, like you said, it's easier said than done, but focus on your assignment this week, and it's beating Columbiana, because if you do that, you're gonna be feeling better about yourself. So I'm going Lisbon.
Next game up, and it should be a really, really good one here. Back in the NE8 Mike, your old conference, Poland on the road in Struthers. And I tell you, I was at Wildcat Stadium a week ago as they pulled off a massive upset, in my book at least, against Girard. They're now 5-4, tying their longest winning streak going back to 2019, in which their fourth win came against Girard. And then Poland eliminated them in the postseason after beating them in week 10 of the year in 2019 as well. So I have the feel coming into this, it's a bit of a redemption run for Struthers this time around. It's playing out very similarly to how it did the last time around. So I think this is one of those scenarios you have to watch out for them underdog Cats. And their motto this season, I love it. It's been a really good one. Trust the climb. I talked to their coach last week about what that meant. He was like, it's for these seniors on this team. That has been their motto this year. The last 3 years for these Struthers Wildcats, their starting quarterback has been injured every single year in the last 3 years, and it stunted their progress to the postseason. This is the year that they have been healthy all year, knock on wood. Alec Grzib has been spectacular. This year, Howard has a really good arm as well. I'm excited to see how they can potentially use him against Poland as well. They threw him in there a couple of times last week against Girard, and it really opened it up for them to continue to run the football how they wanted to. I like Struthers coming into this matchup. They are riding a mile-high wave of momentum that has wins 41-3 over Lakeview, 42-14 over Jefferson, 27-13 over Niles, 42-28 over Girard. And you can't forget, those 4 wins came off of an overtime loss to Hubbard and a 10-point loss to South Range, then a 1-point loss to Streetsboro. The last time that this Struthers team has been outplayed by their opponent came all the way back in August on the 26th when they lost to Geneva 42-20. This is a 5-4 team that is miles beyond a 5-4 record. I'm taking the Cats in this one. I like them. I saw them last week. They've been very impressive to me in Poland. While they do have 3 wins as well against Niles, Lakeview, and Girard, they lost to Jefferson last week at home. Now you have to go on the road. I don't like that setup. I like the Cats.
I'm glad you pointed that out too, because that's what I was just going to say. Geneva, and like you said, losing to 22 by them, that team's 6-3. So Geneva's they're a pretty solid team. And nobody's beaten South Range. We've been praising them all year. So in fact, that was a 10-point game.
The closest team.
Yeah. In fact, that was a 10-point game. That's a moral victory. I know some teams don't like that, but that's the term that I'm using. And then after that overtime win or loss against Hubbard, ripping off those 3, and then 42, you put up 42 points on Girard, and we always know that they're a good defensive team. This is why last week before that game, I didn't think this was a massive upset on Struthers' side. I thought this is a team that was capable of beating Girard, and they did it at their home stadium. So, and hanging 42 on them. So, I definitely got Struthers in this one. I think they're a lot better than what the record it shows, the 5-4 record.
Poland right now, they do sit as the 7th seed in the postseason. They currently hold on to a playoff spot at home if they were to come out with the victory. Obviously, though, that can change up rather quickly. Poland, they've clinched a playoff spot. So even if they lose, go 5-5, they will only drop to 16. So they can go all the way to the bottom and have to take on West Branch in round 1. But if they win this week, they can make it as high as a 4, and every other combination, every other spot is a possibility for them. For Struthers, they clinched a playoff spot as well. With the win, they can go up to 6, as low as 13. With a loss, high of 8, low of 16. So they're both in. It's just going to be a matter of where. And when you have positioning on the line in division here in Division 4, that I would have to say, I think of the divisions here in the region that we've talked about, might be one of the more open ones outside of West Branch, where teams I think have an opportunity, even as a team down at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to potentially go on a run based off who you get to play in those games. I think it's a very competitive region that we should be seeing lots of, I'll say numbers wise, upsets, situations where the 9 goes against the 8 and the 9 comes out. It's going to look more like a March Madness bracket where you don't know which number is coming out.
Well, I just want to say on Poland's side too, I don't think really the last 2 weeks, especially, to me, they have been playing the football they probably want to be playing. I know they got that win against Lakeview, but they only had 9 points. And against Jefferson, they only had 13. So it's, for me, playoff team, okay, but they got to get things. Maybe this game's not even the game to do it against, but they got one more opportunity to kind of get things going on offense a little bit more than where they want it to be at.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out for them. Excited for this matchup, but I like the Cats. I saw them a week ago. Yep. I think they've got a steamroll of momentum going behind them right now, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to root against them in this final week of the season. Ursuline football playing host to Mooney in the greatest rivalry in the Valley, the Holy War, Mike. It's obviously one of the biggest in the region. I ended up not wearing it today. It's in the laundry. I've gotten caught a little bit behind on laundry.
That's all right. I just remember you said you were going to wear it when we talked about it, but
I was. I'll probably have it on for tomorrow's show for the Friday edition, even though we won't be talking about it. But the Holy War, I'm not counting Mooney out of this because their defense, in my opinion, has been good enough to take a game like this 4 quarters. Whether or not they can win it is a different story. But I think especially you compare the matchups to Cheney. Ursuline wins 30-27. Mooney loses 22-17. So clearly, both of these defenses right about par. I mean, that's a differential between the two of them of 5 points from 27-22. Offensively, there's a 10-point differential. I think saying you have a 10-point differential to Ursuline, I think really paints a picture for Mooney that, hey, maybe this offense isn't all that bad. Obviously, it hasn't been good. Only 209 points on the season in 9 games, while Ursuline has managed 359. So clearly a far superior offense in this battle. But defensively, Mooney has allowed just 126, Ursuline 184. Strength of schedule is a big part of that, however, when you look at what Ursuline has gone up against this year. In all reality, Mike, this should be an Irish beatdown of the Cardinals. But I want to give a little bit of hope here to those Mooney fans because of how strong their defense has been throughout this season, that I think they have a chance. They limited Steubenville to just 28 points. In fact, nobody has gotten over the 30-point mark against this Mooney defense this season. I think that's going to be a key factor in what could potentially be a successful Friday night outing for them against Ursuline.
I am going to pick Ursuline this game, but like you said, it's a rivalry game. I always say this with college, any sport really at any level. Rivalry games, I don't care what the record is. If one team's better than the other one, there's always a chance for an upset, and there's always a chance for a close game where the better team pulls away at the end or not. But I'm definitely going to pick Ursuline, but it's a rivalry game. You don't know what you're going to get out of any of it.
Here's the storyline, though, for Mooney. They need to win because win and you're in. You're guaranteed a spot. Right now, they sit 13th in the rankings. With a win, they go as high as 7, as low as 14. With a loss, they can go from 11 to out. So there's a big opening. And then you have to open up the door again for teams to control their destiny around you. And this is a game that if you're over here on the side of Liberty, up here in North Youngstown compared to South Youngstown, you're hoping Mooney goes down in this game. You need Mooney to go down because they need some of these teams in Mooney, Triway, and Smithville, and Orville that control their destiny to lose to give them their postseason opportunity. So there's a lot of team watching, as well as Champion, Lakeview, all 3 of those teams. They're watching this game very closely. They all need Mooney to go down in this game. So Ursuline's going to have even more of a crowd advantage, I think, going into this game because there's going to be a lot of people pulling for the Irish to win this game. On the other side, obviously, some people don't want the Irish to take this because of what it does in the Division 3 Region 9 standings. Ursuline's a 3 team. They obviously have one postseason game at home locked up. However, if they win, they are guaranteed 2 spots. So, depending on who they have to go up against, there's some teams down in probably the bottom half, like Villangela St. Joseph, that might want a rematch in this, or Aurora, or, even Geneva or Alliance, and teams that have had good records but haven't cracked that top 4 that don't want to go into Ursuline in that second week of the postseason and go on to what could be a very challenging game. So I think there's going to be a decent amount pulling for both sides. I think Mooney's going to have a lot more against them. And with Ursuline's line this year being so dominant, I think that they're really going to put the hurt on Mooney in this game. I really want to say Mooney's defense gives them the chance, but I said that a week ago against Steubenville. Steubenville wins 28-7, and you look at Ursuline. I mean, they went up against undefeated St. Joseph, and they won 40-0. What more can you ask for out of Ursuline this season? I'm taking the Irish.
Yeah, they've definitely look good against some good opponents, and look, added pressure against Ursuline. We'll see how they deal with that too.
Next one up, a team that finally seemed to break out of their blues the final week ago, and they head into this week on the road. It's Jefferson. They beat Poland 27-13 after back-to-back losses against Struthers and South Range. That really kind of derailed what they were looking for here in the NE8. Now you go into week 10, they take on the Bulldogs yet again this week. This time it's the Lakeview Bulldogs, who have lost their last 5 games, including their last one out 66-6 against South Range. And before that, they got shut out to Poland, shut out to Hubbard, and 3 points against Struthers, shut out to Girard. They have not fared well in the NE8 conference, Mike. I don't think this one's going to take me very long to break into. I'm taking Jefferson. The offense is too good for them not to perform against Lakeview.
And for that part of it too, yeah, I'm going Jefferson, but for the offense is too good, and Lakeview has not done a good job so far, or at least it's some of their games this year. They haven't done a good job of stopping anybody's offense. I don't care who South Range is. You lose by 60. That's a lot. And then 41 to Struthers, 49 to Girard. They're really not stopping too many people. And so Jefferson, they have a good enough offense to get by that too. I got to go them.
I like the Falcons. Next game up, it's probably another easy game to pick, and it's unfortunate. Sebring, in their final football game in school history for 11-man football, will go on the road into Tiger Town to take on the rolling Springfield Tigers. And Mike, not the spot they want to be in. When Springfield's coming off of 5 straight wins, they looked impressive while doing it. Now you have to go into their territory if you're if you're Sebring, and go take them on. I don't like where that puts them in the kind of situation that they are in to have any sort of competitiveness here. And not to say in their final game of 11-man football, I don't think they get more than a touchdown.
I don't think so either, because some other teams we were talking about even just today, momentum factor, Springfield definitely has that. They're a different team than they were in September, early September. They're just a different team than their record showed then and what it shows now. And like you said, when you're playing your final game too, as a program, that's how are you gonna be? Like, what's your feeling? What's your mindset going into the game? Are you gonna be emotional? Are you gonna be fired up? You don't know what you're gonna get. And I think Springfield's just gonna take care of that. I think they're playing better football. So give me the Tigers.
And the Tigers, man, they're looking to take care of business. And I think that this is a game, well, yeah, they should win this, and it really shouldn't be that much of a question for them. I think it's a game that they still need to win because of what they've done recently. They have a chance to take a home game here in the postseason. And when you look at their record, they're 5-4. You go, really? Especially with Matthews at 8-1 sitting behind them. You have 6-3 Toronto behind them as well, and a couple of other 5-wins teams. But this new Middletown Springfield sits just below Southern in the rankings right now. With the win, they might not guarantee themselves one of those top 8 spots. They could still drop depending on what happens with Matthews and what happens with Lucas. But still, it's a game. Control your destiny. Give yourselves that opportunity to play 2 home games in front of your home crowd. With this young of a team, Mike, that is very important, I think, for this Springfield team to earn a home game. You need to get this team in front of your home crowd come the postseason.
And earn this home game against, you need it, and this home game against a team that you should win. It's an 0-9 team that like you said, we don't know what their mindset's going to be going into this game. After being 0-9, having the last game, this is a game you need to win if you're Springfield, and you should win.
Yeah. At the moment, though, they'd be going up against Lucas in round 1, and I think that'd be one heck of a matchup.
Yeah.
Both teams kind of had that wobbly start to the season, but we know both of those programs pretty strong historically. Boardman at 4-5 goes into the 7-1 Canfield Cardinals. Mike, I don't like Boardman here. They've lost their last 3. I mean, obviously very hard games. Harding, Dover, Fitch, and Canfield's gotten the opportunity to play some conference games, especially last week against Howland. Beat up the Tigers 43-7, shut out East the week before 48-0. Then obviously beat Dover in overtime in what was a tough affair on the road. But, Mike, this isn't going to be any problem for the Cardinals. They're going to come in here. They're going to dominate Canfield. They're going to dominate the Spartans. They're a 2 seed. They're looking to stay a 2 seed. I don't really see any drop coming in their future. And if you're Boardman, it really is must-win football. And we'll see how that plays into it, because here in Division 2, they are a 17 seed. They are on the outside looking in, hoping that they can take this game and make it a possibility for themselves, but they do not control their own destiny. With a win, they can end up as high as 12. With a loss, they might still find the 16 seed, depending on what goes around, kind of around them. But it's not a situation if you're bored and you want to let everyone else control what happens to you in this final week. It's one they need to win. Unfortunately, I don't think I've seen enough on either side of football this season to give them this kind of win. One, I don't think their offense can keep up with Canfield's Brock Lowry, and I don't think their defense is going to do much to stop them either, despite how good I think that their defense has been this season. They don't have an offense, and that has hurt their defense a lot.
Well, and I always say when I'm picking games, give me a reason to pick you. And I think Canfield's giving me reasons to pick them. I don't really have too many reasons to pick Bournemouth. I think Canfield's done what you would expect out of them this year. Only a 3-point loss to Cheney team that we know is pretty strong, and they're pretty much taking care of business against everybody else. Whether you want to look at the level of competition or not, they've blown people out, and they've won the games they're supposed to. So they're giving me a reason to pick them, so I'm going with Cardinals.
I like the choice there. LeBray at 0-9, trying to finish the season, I think, without any injuries. They're going up against Campbell here in the final week, and I know you say, it's Campbell. Maybe they have an opportunity. I don't like LeBray's chances. They have not played anybody close this season, and I think you would say, as an 0-9 team, you're going up against a 2-win team. Maybe they have an opportunity. I think when you look at Campbell this year, maybe a smidge better than 2-7. A couple games maybe they should have played a little better in. But I think this is a final week for Mike, that they should go and play and defend John Napick one final time, finish off the year with what would typically be a tough game against LeBray. But this is a battle for last place in the conference. Campbell's, I don't think, is going to be the one that is going to take that drop in the final week. I like, the Red Devils here to take it over the Vikings.
Well, yeah. And again, I'm going to use the same argument as I just had. Give me a reason to pick you. LeBray has not given me anything to pick them this year, and neither really Campbell hasn't either. But they've shown, like you said, they have the 2 wins. There probably should have been 1 or 2, maybe, that they could have squeaked out or at least played better in. So I'm going Campbell on that one too. And if it's a tight game, I'm picking Campbell because I don't want to get yelled at for that. But because my dad. But I'm going Campbell.
Are you saying Father Wolfgang would not be pleased if you chose against his alma mater in a game like this?
I mean, I know he would never, but yeah, he wouldn't be mad, but it's that's my school, so I don't want to hear that.
I'm not mad, son. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah.
Neither team going to make the postseason so this is just one final opportunity to end the year on a win. Perhaps that margin could be enough for LeBray to kind of tip the scales in their favor. But Mike, I like the Red Devils. It's, give me a reason to pick you. And LeBray hasn't even been close to giving anyone a reason to even look their direction in this game. So if they win, great job taking one. You avoid the losing season. If you lose, it's what we expected. So you can only have a positive outcome here. If you play it close, it's better than expected. Even if you lose, no one's coming out of this being disappointed, I think, in the performance of LeBray in this specific game. As the season goes, they're probably a little disappointed with the way it went, but overall, you're not disappointed with the outcome of this game. You can only come out on top going, hey, we played a good game.
And they have a chance too. It's not like they're playing a 7-2 team. They're playing a 2-7 team. So they have. It's not like it's David versus Goliath, but they have a chance. But I think, like you said, reason to pick you. They haven't given us anything this year.
Well, here's a team that is playing the David versus Goliath. I know I hate it, but you just threw it out there, so I'll throw it into this one. Waterloo, a 23 seed that is not done yet. Mineral Ridge is going to be their opponent here in week 10, but it's in Atwater. It's being played at Waterloo High School. However, they have lost their last 4 games. They were 3-2 with their last win coming against Reserve. They had to go up against Lowellville, Springfield, Jackson Milton, and McDonald in the last 4 weeks. So it's been a rough stretch for them. However, in this position, if they can beat Mineral Ridge, Waterloo potentially can grab as high as a 13 seed. They could make a 10-spot jump in the final week, in the final polls to come out before the postseason to make that run. They're going to need a lot to go their way. I think maybe the one bright side is Mineral Ridge just had its biggest game a week ago against the Ville. They lost it 21-7. If any momentum shifter is going to give Waterloo a chance, it's Mineral Ridge coming off of a hard-fought game against Lowellville in which they only put a touchdown on the board. If Waterloo has any chance, this is it.
This is definitely it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Try to set it up there.
You are. No, you did a good job. You did a good job of it happening, but I think, with Mineral Ridge's case coming off that loss last week, I think playing a tough opponent like they did with Lowellville and coming off to that, and you have your last game of the season against Waterloo, who's, like I said, still fighting for things, but 3-6, not a great year. I don't see Mineral Ridge losing. I don't see them coming after a game that they felt like they wanted to win against Lowellville and then coming back against a team that's not at Lowellville's level to close out the season. I just don't see that happening.
I'm with you there, Mike. I think Ridge is going to take this game. I was setting it up there maybe to see if I could bait you in and take
sorry if I poured water on the fire. I didn't mean to.
Well, that fire's gone. I mean, it's just smoke at this point. I don't think Waterloo has much of a chance. If I was to give them a chance, I think it would probably be, I would say, around 10%, because I don't think that they're a team that you completely count out like you would maybe Campbell in a game like this. I think that they're a little bit better. I think they're kind of on Jackson Milton's level, and we saw that. It was a 7-0 game when they took on Jackson Milton. I thought that was the game in which they were most evenly matched. However, we saw Ridge run over Jackson Milton 42-7. So while I think there's an opportunity for the Lou to get this done, I like the Ridge.
Yep.
Next one up, as we're closing into our final few games here to talk about on the Thursday edition of the show. South Range, undefeated. Mike, I would like to say we'll spend a little bit talking on this one, but I don't think we will, because no one's touched the Raiders this year. No one's even been close outside of Struthers, as the Raiders go on the road one last time here during the regular season before they will play 2 straight home games in the postseason. It's already been decided. They will go on the road to take on the Eagles of Hubbard in really what is a huge matchup here in the NEA, and really one that, you have to look at. It should be a good game. South Range, I believe, has already taken the conference crown, but it's a game for Hubbard that you want to win. You want to go in. You want to beat your rival in Week 10. You need an opportunity to maybe bump yourself up in the postseason as well. So, it's a spot for Hubbard. They sit as a 12 seed. If you can knock off the top team here in South Range in Division 5, it goes a long way into potentially getting them a home game for the postseason if South Range lets off at all.
Yeah, and on the side of Hubbard too, obviously I'm picking South Range, but I feel like they could have been better. The 3-6 record, it's a good spot, but I think they could have been a little better this year. I think there were some times that their offense wasn't looking as great, and they didn't have things clicking on that side of the ball. Their defense has been okay. It's actually, outside of that Girard game and the Niles game, but it's been pretty good. So their offensive side, they haven't gotten to where they want to be, and you got to have that against South Range, because you're going to be in for a long one if you don't have, you're not going to outscore them, but if you can't at least keep up with them for a little parts of the game, it's going to be a long night.
Well, this game, Mike, it is really the decider on whether or not Hubbard will be playing at home in the postseason. If they win, they grab a top 8 seed for Division 4 Region 13. If they lose, they will be placed 8 through 16. So there's still one spot available for them to get that. But obviously the odds are not in their favor. So they would likely be playing the entire postseason on the road. And I think when you look at them this season in 6-4 and you go, man, they would be playing on the road throughout the entirety of the postseason, no home game on the slate. I think that's kind of a head scratcher for you there. So it's one of those games that you have to look at. I guess they could still go in if there's an upset above them. They end up as the higher seed.
Right.
But it's a game for Hubbard. You have to win. And if you're South Range, this game is bragging rights alone. They've already clinched the top spot. So even with a loss, this is only momentum going into the postseason for them.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that derails what has been a great season for this Raiders team and slows them down. I think Hubbard's going to give it their best shot, but I don't think South Range is going to be taking any punches off. They're going to be going full force into this game, and I like South Range to get it done.
Yeah, I expect a good effort from Hubbard. You usually do from them, but South Range is just, hey, right now they haven't had a loss all year, so I'm going to keep riding with it.
Right? How can you not roll undefeated?
Yeah, for as much as we talked about them, there's not many reasons there.
Well, how about a team that has also given us plenty of reasons to talk about them? Austintown Fitch, sitting at 8-1. They have one game left on the season. It's a home game after they won their last three against Strongsville, Wadsworth, and Boardman. And that Wadsworth one, I think it took a lot out of them. Almost gave Boardman a shot there for the first half of football. Fitch pulled away, though. But now Fitch, final week of the season, they play host to the Warren G. Harding Raiders, who obviously at 2-7 haven't had the season they wanted. They were a touchdown away from upsetting Cheney a week ago. They took down Boardman. They were in a 2-score game against some of the best teams in our region in Hudson. Massillon, Washington was a 30-point game expected, but 2-touchdown game against Ursuline, 15-point game to St. V, 10-point game against Mooney. Warren G. Harding has been on the cusp every single week. They've given teams the best shot. Despite the record, Mike, I think you have to watch out for Fitch in this game. I think that they're the better team, but it doesn't mean Harding's not going to stick with them for 4 quarters.
I definitely think this could be a close one to end the season up for Fitch. I am going to pick Fitch, but I think it could be somewhat of a more physical game than they've had probably since it's been a while since they've actually been in it's probably that 2 weeks ago in Wadsworth in that 4 overtime game. But I am going to pick Fitch, but Harding, like we've said how many week in and week out with them, I think they're a better team than what the 2-7 record is. Tough schedule they've gone through, but do they have what it takes to kind of keep things close a little bit, at least half the game against Fitch? Yeah, I do, but I don't think they have enough to win it.
This is a game, though, for Warren G. Harding. Win, and they might have a postseason spot. They can hit as high as 10 with a win. However, they could still not make it. It's a big gap for them here at the end of the year. For Fitch, though, it's actually one that doesn't matter for them. With a loss, they will be seeded 3, 4, or 5. With a win, they will be seeded 2, 3, 4, or 5. So it's a matter of one spot for them potentially on this ranking wise. However, it's the momentum of it all, isn't it? You don't, especially when you look at this top, when you got Hoban, Riverside, Hudson, Fitch, St. V, Nordonia, Walsh, Jesuit, and Barberton. That's your top 8 teams. Woo! There's going to be some kind of region to break out of. Winner of this region probably takes Division II football. They'd have a really, really good I think, in my opinion, a really, really good shot to do it. I think you look at one this tight, and I think you have to give a lot of looks this way. Whoever comes out, obviously outside of Massillon, Washington, and Uniontown Lake, playing over in Region 7.
That's why you want to be playing your best football. That's why you want to be hot and feel good about yourself going into it.
Over, I might have to roll that back a little bit. I'm looking through, and this is actually a really good Division 2 this year. I don't know if you've looked at some of these teams, but man, this is going to be the division to watch this year. I know we have only the one team in it, but this looks good.
See it happen.
I want to see Fitch run the whole thing because I think I just want to see them go up against a bunch of these teams on the network.
Yeah, see how they fare.
Right. I mean, obviously they've taken the best of the best from Division 1. In Wadsworth, took them 4 overtimes. They were in a close game against Massillon, Washington, who's obviously also in this division. So I think it's a fun postseason to think about for Fitch, and it should not be an easy one for him in the slightest. Next game, I would love to play Homer here and take East Liverpool, but they are playing host to a team out of West Virginia that's played good football to this point, and Ware, who comes in at 5-3. They're the Ware Red Raiders, despite not having any red in their logo whatsoever. Love that. But East Liverpool, they are coming off a win against Oak Glen out of West Virginia, who obviously was a 2-6 team, so not as good as Ware. But, you break down the last half of the season, and it has not been a great finish for him. The 2 wins for East Liverpool have come against Minerva, who's in Oak Glen, who's also so it really hasn't been a prosperous year for him. You know, I can't say much about where's schedule so far because I don't know a ton of the teams on here, but they've gone in and played fairly well from what I'm looking at on scores. And when you look at the Oak Glen game, East Liverpool actually won by a greater margin than this Ware team did. However, one was at the beginning of the year when Oak Glen still had fresh legs, and one was at the end of the year when Oak Glen had gotten dogged on for 8 weeks. I think that's the one difference. I think I'm going to go Red Raiders here out of West Virginia to come into the state of Ohio and pull out a win. I normally hate doing it, but I haven't seen enough out of the Potters this season, Mike, to give me an inclination that they're going to do something here.
I was just going to say, you just said it for me. That's kind of shocking to see you go against Ohio teams, but because I know how the way you are with that.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going to go with you. I'm going to pick Ware too. Sorry, it's Liverpool.
Yeah. The Potters have had a rough go of things, and I believe they're eliminated from the postseason anyway, so this game does nothing for them.
Yeah.
It's just a, hey, I mean, I'd love to see the Potters take this final game. Don't get me wrong.
Pride reasons.
I just like being right, so.
Don't we all?
Yeah, right. I don't have the worst pick percentage at YSN right now, so I have that in my in my cap. I'm actually at the moment. I don't think they've totaled the last 2 weeks up yet for the YSN picks, but I have a better pick percentage, just barely, than DJ Oakley. So I got a little bit on him.
The boss, you're out playing him.
But there's probably 20 other people ahead of both of us, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
Final game on our slate today, Mike, and it's another one that isn't going to take much to break down. It's the Richmond Edison Wildcats. Perfect season on the line against the singular win team out of Wintersville and Indian Creek, who so far this season has scored just 116 points and has allowed 313. Edison, much better in both those departments. They're 1 point shy of 400 total scored on the year. Here's one for you. They're going to hit 400 this week. Guarantee that. But defensively, Mike, they've only allowed 66 points. This is an incredible performance, and I know the strength of schedule is a big factor in that for this season for Edison. But I think you have to look at this team, and you have to be very pleased with the direction that they're going in and the momentum they are carrying with them to go into the postseason now.
And for these undefeated teams, it's just hard for them for at least me to picture them going into a chance to be 10-0 and playing a team that's more than 8, like in this case, Indian Creek. I don't see them losing. I'm going Edison just for, I don't, like you said, level competition. I don't care who it is against, but through 9 weeks, you only give up that many points on defense. That's pretty dang good. So they got things going in their favor.
They do have things going, and it's been one heck of a ride for them here to finish out the year. Well, those are the 16 teams we were talking about today. I think we got 18 on the slate for tomorrow. As I think it's just going to be me on the show. Matt hasn't been able to find a way to get on to our Friday edition very many times. It's fine. I'll hold down the fort to finish out the regular season. But, Mike, it's a week I'm expecting a couple of competitive games. I think there is going to be a lot of blowouts. I think both games I'm covering are going to be blowouts. I'm not afraid to say I don't think that we're going to see a lot of these games stand up to what we think they will either. Favorites should win here in the final week. Yep. There's a lot of teams that are going to try and play the underdog, but I would not count on the underdog here in the final week to actually pull it off because a lot of these underdog stories are going to have to be monumental upsets.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have a week where we've had the last couple weeks where there's big games, marquee matchups. We're all hyping up for obvious reasons, but there's still going to be some decent games. Like you said, I don't think there's going to be a lot of upsets. I don't think there's going to be hardly any at all. But you never know. It's the last week. Some teams are playing for seeding. Some teams are playing for pride reasons. So, and especially in this last game we talked about. But it's still going to be a good week of football.
Yeah, it will be. I'm very excited to see how that all plays out. Before we run off the show here, I'm going to run through playoff scores from volleyball and soccer last night. Fitch beat Cleveland Heights in 3 sets. East Liverpool won in 3 sets. Edgewood beat Ursuline 3-1. West Branch won in 3 sets over Salem. Mineral Ridge won 3 sets over Brookfield. Garfield over Rootstown in the same. McDonald over East Canton in 3. Walsh Jesuit ended the Louisville season 3-1. Indian Creek season is done as Beaver Local takes them down 3-1. Kenston beat East 3-0. Champion ended my Leopard season 3-2. Of course, the Leopards go out in 5 sets. That just feels fitting this year that's how that season comes to a close. Campbell actually, I believe, played underdog in this one. They took down United in 3 sets, and Badgers' great season's going on as they beat Badger in 3 sets to 1. Over in soccer, reported scores we got: Salem ended off Ursuline. West Branch dominated Struthers 10-0. Hubbard beat Alliance beat Hubbard 9-1. Canfield beat Jefferson 7-0. Niles beat Streetsboro 4-1. Poland destroyed Columbiana 9-0. United's girls soccer won over Grand Valley 3-2. Springfield over PV 2-0. Mooney over Southeast 4-1. Waterloo won 10-0. Badger soccer. It was a good night for Badger last night. Matt's going to be happy as they beat Steubenville Central Catholic 2-1. Lakeview beat Bristol 6-0. Champion beat Crestview 3-0. So, Mike, it's been a pretty fun road for the postseason so far. Tonight, we have a couple of more games going on. None of them on the network, unfortunately. Playoff volleyball, though. We got Niles Girard tonight, Perry Canfield, Waterloo Crestview, South Range LeBray, Southern Springfield, Aquinas, Swellsville, Aurora Howland, Orange versus my alma mater in Copley. Poland and Lakeview, Windham and Western Reserve, Sebring, Jackson, Milton. In boys playoff soccer, South Range versus Wycliffe, Garrettsville Garfield versus Crestview, Conneaut versus Mooney, Liberty versus JFK, PV versus Badger, Mineral Ridge and Champion, Steubenville Central Catholic and Crestview. Girls playoff soccer tonight, Louisville versus NDCL, and North Canton Hoover versus Howland. That's the complete rundown of games. And I know I was just basically rambling off a bunch of nothingness for a whole about 2 minutes there, but that's fine. We got nothing else to talk about here today on the show. That's going to do it for us. I'm Alec Berna. That's Mike Wolfgang. This has been the Casual Sports Podcast, day 1 of the high school football extravaganza. Day 2 tomorrow. I'm going over another 18 games. So if you didn't hear yours today, we'll make sure to recap it or preview it, not recap it. That'll happen next week here on the show. But Power Hour coming up next on your Sports Network.